Yeah, that was a pretty unique staff. So I was the offensive coordinator. Ricky Ronnie was the offensive graduate assistant, who's now our offensive coordinator. Yeah, Raheem Morris was the defensive coordinator. Scott Frost was the defensive graduate assistant. We had a great staff. Tim Tibesar was on that staff, who's now the defense coordinator at Oregon State, I think. So a bunch of guys. So Scott's a guy that I've stayed in touch with. My wife stayed in touch with Scott. Got a lot of respect for him. Couldn't be happier for him going back home and what he was able to do the last couple of years. Doesn't surprise me. Was always a guy that was really intelligent, was hard charging, had strong beliefs in who he was personally as well as professionally. So it's great. Me and Scott now typically sit next to each other in the head coaches meetings and things like that. So really happy for him and happy for Nebraska and for our conference. I think we got another really good coach in our conference, which helps everybody.
James, what are you expecting from this freshman class, and how much different is it now from when you first got to Penn State and obviously had to play all those true freshmen?
Yeah, I think we obviously have more depth than we've had in the past. I do think this year specifically we have more question marks, so we're probably going to have to rely on some freshmen that we normally wouldn't, and specifically at some positions where you probably normally wouldn't. So at linebacker, I think we all know got some question marks there, and then obviously being able to have Jesse Luquetta and Micah Parsons on campus early, I think was helpful. Those guys I think are going to probably have to factor in what roles. I'm not sure yet. And then on top of that, I think a defensive tackle. I think P.J. Mustipher and Judge Culpepper probably come in probably further ahead than we thought. And there's a buzz about all those guys right now in our program, and may be able to factor in size-wise, strength-wise, things like that. So obviously you got Justin Shorter and Ricky Slade and some guys that you can make arguments were considered high profile outside. I think all the guys that we signed internally we felt like were great players, but I think probably positions like defensive tackle and linebacker where we have the biggest need, those guys may be pressed into action a little bit earlier. And the new redshirt rule allows us to kind of test the water early on with all those guys if it makes sense. I think that's one of the things that may be different than people anticipate. We're not just going to play guys because we can now. They still got to earn that right. If not, we'll save it till later in the season in case we get in those situations where we need to play.
James, what concerns, if any, do you have about the newly legalized sports gambling nationwide? Jim Delaney about an hour ago mentioned that he thinks it should become standard that there be pregame player availability reports. What are your thoughts on those if they were to come into effect?
So you want me to talk about kind of like two different topics?
Yeah,
I know they go hand in hand.
I guess he was saying that with legalized sports gambling that player availability reports should come out to help, I guess, with people who would gamble on a game or whatever.
Yeah. I'm not really necessarily concerned in helping people make better decisions. With things like that. I do think obviously you'd like to have some situation where again you're level on the playing field, like we talked about, in the big room just a minute ago about everybody kind of playing under the same rules. The problem is how are you going to enforce all those things? One program's doing one thing, another program's doing completely the opposite, and it makes it challenging. But for me, I'm not necessarily looking to do anything to help people in terms of who they're choosing and who they're betting on. We're not looking at doing any of those types of things. For us, I want to know what the rules are within our state. I want to know what the rules are nationally, and once I know what those are, then we'll just work around them. But to be honest with you, besides that, we're going to educate our players on what they need to be aware of. We're going to educate our coaches on what they need to be aware of, and besides that, it'll be business as usual for us.
James, you felt that injuries are a private matter, that you've kept them quiet, and you think it's a team matter. But Commissioner Delaney is saying that it should be made public for whatever reason, and I was just wondering if you discussed that within the coaching group or with the commissioner.
I think what's happened is, I think as we all know, rules get put in place because somewhere or someone was abusing a rule. So, or abusing something that a rule now has to be put in place. I think for the most part, everybody's kind of doing it the same ways. You have a few people that are outside of that norm. Again, to me, if there's a rule that says we have to do it, we'll follow that rule. If there's a rule that says we don't, that we're going to keep business as it's been for a number of different reasons. Part of it was gambling. Part of it is our players' health is personal. You know, there's some HIPAA laws when it comes to those types of things. And the other thing is, if I tell you, if I tell Mark that you got a bad ankle, what's Mark going to do? You're going to go after your ankle. You know, so you know, if you have a weakness, why are you going to put your weakness out on the table and let people know what those things are? So there's some things when it comes to the NFL. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So you know, for us, we are going to try to gain as much information we possibly can about our opponent, and we're going to try to limit. Excuse me. We're going to try to limit the amount of information that we give to our opponent. So that's all it really comes down to us. But all I care about is whatever the rules are, we're going to follow the rules. We'll live within those rules and go from there. But what I don't understand at this point is, how are we going to enforce this rule? Is this going to be a compliance enforced rule? Is this going on each individual campus? Is this an NCAA enforced rule? What are the penalties for it? So I just think we have to be careful, because we have enough rules right now that we have a hard time enforcing, and now we add more.
James, another concern of legalized sports betting is that your players might be very popular on campus with kids trying to hit them for information about the team to benefit them. How do you educate your players into, you know, just kind of staying focused and not being swept up in all of it?
I don't want to come off like we are not showing enough respect to the rule being passed and the law being passed, but it's not like gambling wasn't already happening, whether it was legally or illegally, is happening. So we try to educate our players that they always need to be sensitive with information from a gambling perspective. They also need to be sensitive with information because of the opponents we play. They really go hand in hand. So I don't really see the new rule or the new law changing how we go about our business, because it was always going on. I mean, early on when I first started coaching, you know, I didn't really understand why people went to the degree that they go to when you lose a game. Some people take it way too far. Well, at that point in my career, I was probably naive, because people are losing, you know, a lot of money, which takes it. And there's a fine line to that, you know. So I think the real, you know, we've legalized this because it was happening anyway and it wasn't able to be controlled. Well, now maybe we can get some control and some restraints around it, and you know, and grab a hold of it a little bit, I guess.
Coach, it's time for a lot of preseason hype. Trace is being named for a lot of awards, just like Saquon was last year. Is there anything you guys gained, learned from, you know, the journey with Saquon, how the Heisman thing was handled, that kind of stuff, that you would put in place differently or the same with Trace?
Well, I think it reinforced, I think, what we were already preaching. That none of those things matter. Preseason team rankings don't matter. Preseason individual awards don't matter. It's where you're at the end of the season. I mean, let's be honest. At one point, it was a foregone conclusion that Saquon Barkley was winning the Heisman Trophy, and then 3 weeks later, he's not even a part of the conversation. So I think we all realize how ridiculous that was. But my point is, it's a really good example for all of us to look. Hey, let's not get caught up in any of this hype. Let's focus on the things that we can control. Let's get prepared to be the best football we possibly can be week in and week out. Typically, the players that get some type of accolades at the end of the season usually come from the best teams, so they complement one another. Those things go hand in hand. So let's focus on the things we can control, not those. It's wonderful that our guys are getting some attention for all their hard work and sacrifices, but it's really not what defines us or what we're focused on at this time.
Thank you, Coach.